Everybody's good in building websites nowadays and making it shine. But at the end, most of them talk to everyone. They try to talk with everyone, which is one of the lessons in marketing and sales or whatever in companies. Like a lot of companies, my customers, I can sell to everyone. My product fits to everyone. That's never true. And the same as I think in architecture. As an architect, you probably have specific skills, or your team of architects, or your company, your mini company, you have skills that fit one specific need. Start with focus, right? Focus on a smaller niche and try to get as much from that niche, and then you can try to expand, etc.
In these times of fast change, have you ever thought architecture might be falling a bit short and wondered, what's next? Well, let's find out. My name is Luca De Stefano. I'm one of the founders of Nonei, and this is Boundary Breaking Businesses Beyond Architecture, designers and commissioners of tomorrow speaking today. Episode 7: Architects versus Marketing. Hello everyone, and welcome to Beyond Architecture for a whole new episode. Today it's a very, very special occasion. This episode was recorded as a pilot, so it wasn't meant to be released. But it was too good not to. So you will see a bad camera from my side, the audio is so-so, the content is very spontaneous. I'm sure you will enjoy a lot. We will be talking about marketing. Last week, we met the biggest architecture influencer in the world. Well, this week we stay on communications. We will look at marketing tips for architects, but also about the story of an architect that moved all the way into marketing. Our guest is a product manager in various tech startups. Besides that, he was in the list of Forbes under 30 for his work in 3D printing. And most importantly, he's one of the co-founders of Nonei and one of my best friends. Today, we connect with Berlin in Germany because at Beyond Architecture, we talk with Marco Mattia Cristofori.
Yay!
Hey, Marco.
This is so weird, isn't it?
It's strange, isn't it?
It's very weird. First of all, it's very weird to speak in English, just directly in English with you, only me and you. I think it's very weird. And then to talk something that's not architecture, you know.
A bit of background for our listeners. We're both Italians, just in case our names don't give it away.
Or the accent.
I
know you're very proud of your accent, so you will know.
Not true. I received suggestions to do this podcast actually with a heavier Italian accent.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like talking like this all the time. Hello, Marco.
Interesting. We should wear like a Luigi and a Mario hat.
Exactly. Well, besides these big stereotypes on Italians, we are here to talk about marketing. And sure. I want to go straight into my first marketing question, which I guess it's also a question many have while listening to your introduction. Marco, what exactly is a product marketing manager?
It's a complex thing, right? A lot of people don't understand it. I get these questions very, very often. And sometimes even recruiters that are actually looking for product marketing manager don't exactly know what product marketing manager is. Product marketing has been there since a few years now. Maybe it's picking up a bit more now. It's becoming a bit more hype, let's say, in the marketing world. It's a position that is a bit a hybrid, I would say, between like the creative world, but also the more technical side. I would say this is from my personal experience, is more common in the B2B companies, so business to business, rather than B2C.
Right.
Main focus is basically ensuring that everything that comes from the product, it's well presented, is well pitched, is well served. Let's put it also like this, to the marketing team, the actual marketing team, to then campaign it, to then sell it, to then do whatever they want to do, but also to the sales team, so they're enabled, right? They're supported, they know how to talk about the product, they all talk in the same way about the product, etc., etc. I found somewhere an interesting way to describe it, where, product managers are the chefs in a restaurant, and product marketers are kind of the waiters, right? So we're the people that then take the product and kind of serve it to the customers, to the final customers in a well presented way. So the customer is happy, we collect the feedback, etc., and then we can take them back.
That's pretty cool. So you are basically the waiter?
I'm a waiter. At the end of the day, I'm a waiter. With a Mario hat, a Super Mario hat, yes.
Oh, in an Italian restaurant?
Exactly.
You take
obviously
the dishes from the kitchen, which is the engineering team, or depends
on the product, right? Depends on the company.
Product. Yeah. And your job is to package it, make sure all the info is correct, make sure there is one story around that product and one strategy, and then you pass it along to your colleagues for them to market it, sell it, and so on.
Exactly.
Correct?
Then depends. Exactly. Then depends again in the company. What's the product? Sometimes I serve it directly to customers. Maybe sometimes I just make the plate looking nice, and then the sales team is the one that serves it to the customer. But that's mainly the concept. Yes.
Okay. This already, opens a way for a ton of follow-up questions, because as an architect or as a trained architect, and then later something else, which I'm still trying to figure out what exactly that is, but I kind of, I'm new to this whole world of marketing, because there is a whole ecosystem in a tech startup. There is a lot of roles, a lot of different people doing different things. And the way you describe it feels like it's a big team working generally in this type of marketing departments. Could you maybe give us a short tour for all the architects out there?
So, look, it depends. Again, it really depends on the company structure and the product itself. For example, specifically for product marketing, you might have companies where product marketing is in the product team. So maybe more in the engineering side, in the product organization, on the development side. In other companies, are more product marketing is in the marketing team. So on actually the customer-facing side. In both cases, or all my experiences, let's say, I've always been in the marketing team. Marketing can be very complex. Marketing team it can do lots of things. Lots of people have different opinion on how marketing team should be structured and work. At the end of the day, there is not one way, the right way. Again, depends on the product, depends on a lot of things. But see it like this. For example, a generic marketing team could be structured with having a CMO, a head of marketing, a director of marketing, a VP of marketing. Depends if there is multiple layers or not, but there is always like one person that at the end of the day represents
CMO.
Chief marketer.
CMO would be the chief marketing officer.
Exactly.
Okay, so one of the big heads of the company.
Exactly. Sometimes the CMO is not there, so there could be a VP of marketing, there could be a director of marketing, or a head of marketing, right? Depends. Or there could be all of them if it's a very marketing-driven company, so there is a lot. Because at the end of the day, going back to the product, it depends. One of the main factors is it a marketing-led company or it's a sales-led company? There are companies where at the end of the day, sales does the sale, right? The sale itself. So marketing enables them. But there are companies and products that are sold directly via marketing, right? An example is our company, right? Look, with non-architecture, we don't have a sales department. We are a marketing-driven company. Like there is our funnel, let's say, is a no-touch funnel. Users come to non-architecture, finds what they like, and if they like it, they buy it. So all the effort is made by marketing at the end of the day.
So I'll recap just to stay up with the discussion. So we're talking about two types of companies. There's companies where there is a lot of marketing people, because at the end of the day, these are the ones selling things. And if we could make it with the example of the restaurant, of the Italian restaurant, there could be an online pizzeria, or there could be a sales pizzeria where you go pick it up yourself and there's salespeople. Stupid.
Doesn't work with the restaurant because you're already in the restaurant, so you choose to go to the restaurant.
You're right.
Like, let's say if there is people outside the restaurant try to get you in, right? That could be the kind of the salespeople maybe. Otherwise, if you go in already, it means that the marketing team did something, right? Because they had that was enough for you to buy the product.
I have it. So if we're talking about the pizzeria, an Italian restaurant again, a pizzeria, there could be a marketing-driven pizzeria is one where you follow them on social media, they pop out in your feed, and then you really want to go there and buy their pizza. And a sales-driven pizzeria would be a pizzeria door-to-door, some guy knocking your door and say, hey, you want a pizza? It's warm, and you have to give them money right away. Something like that.
Good luck with that. But yeah, exactly. It's kind of like that the way. And I guess, again, there is a lot of processes, right? It depends. B2B, B2C is one of the main factors, right? But depends also on the size of the product. Is it the hardware? The most, and of course how generation change, right? And the typology can also change between generations. The typical example is cars. Cars. There is no way 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, people would have thought to buy cars online, right? Without going to a car dealer, talk with a car dealer, drive the car, test it, get all the information about the car. Maybe I guess Tesla was the first one who kind of disrupted it, right? They say, why? We can make a funnel, no touch funnel, meaning like there is a funnel that not between like the moment you get interested, you discover Tesla, you get interested, you buy Tesla, there is a no touch funnel, meaning nobody will interact with you. You do everything by yourself until the moment you check out. And Tesla was able to build it, right? Because people buy Tesla online because some prefer to do test driving, but a lot of people actually go for it directly. So in that case, it was a shuffle, right? It was a bit of a switch in the mentality. So this is more another way it could change between generation and generation.
And when you mentioned B2B, B2C, we're talking business to business and business to customer, B2C,
to consumers, right? I mean, business also customers, consumers, right? Yeah. So if you're selling directly to consumers.
And architecture?
It's both.
It's both. Okay, interesting. How so?
Well, I mean, if you as an architect, you're designing for a consumer, that's a B2C, right, approach. You are the business and you're delivering your service, your product directly to a consumer, selling to a consumer. But if you are a firm working for another firm, I don't know, a public entity or something like this, and in that case, it's more B2B, right? So it could be both.
So if I build a villa for a private customer, I'm doing B2C. If I'm building a big office for a company, I'm doing B2B.
I would say so, yes.
Okay.
Very unique, as usual, architecture, yeah.
And you also mentioned sales funnel. Maybe you want to explain briefly what a funnel is, because that might sound new to lots of designers out there.
That's a good point. So imagine like the shape of a funnel, right? A pyramid upside down. That's kind of a funnel. Well, the direction you can choose. Let's go from top to bottom. The funnel is basically in marketing or in sales is kind of where you could track all your customer journey in a way. So there is a moment where the customer realize that a company exists, a discovery phase, maybe because of brand, maybe because of whatever, but there is a phase where you discover, you are aware that a company exists, right? A business exists. That's the top of the funnel, right? There is now X amount of users know, or people know that you exist. That's the very top. Let's say the end of the funnel, it's the amount of people that buy, for example, your product. So in between, there is a lot of interaction, right? There are the people that know you, the people that start interacting with you, whatever, right? Can be because of the newsletter, can be because of someone knocked at your door and tried to sell a pizza and you say, not now, but hey, take my business card, maybe tomorrow you reach out to me. So there is a first interaction, a first, like, the user show interest. So there is a 1 point more. Then the next step could be like, hey, you know what, give me a quote for your product. So there is extra interest, or give me a demo, show me how it works, even more, blah, 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 until the point it gets to a sales. Now, I say like this because the funnel is never like the amount of users that starts and discover you. There will never be the same the amount that they buy from you, right? Of course, there will be people that lose interest, people that they didn't like the demo or the product, people that don't fit your maybe customer profile. So this is a very important thing in general, both in sales, in marketing, but in a company, because you can really track all the journey, all the touch point. You can understand. For example, an important factor is, where do we lose more users? Where do we lose more interest? Can we do some calibration to adjust it so we reduce the number of people who lost the interest and left, let's say, the funnel at one point? Maybe, if we improve a bit our newsletter, we see that less people actually lose the interest and then they keep going into the funnel. So it becomes really once you have a funnel clear, you can really start adjusting with micro changes in the funnel to try to improve your number of sales. Exactly. And at the end of the day, how in the tech people and the tech world people say, you always try to move the needles a bit more into the right direction, right? And when I say needle, you think about the, how's called in English, the bussola, Luca?
Compass.
The compass, right? So you want to try to move slightly more the needle into the right direction, which is the company direction. So doing this micro adjustment can always help to get at the end of the day more sales.
That's already the first marketing lesson I think we could take out of this quick chat. Working with a funnel, which Marco mimicked quite nicely on camera, but for those that are maybe only listening, it's a reverse pyramid, as you said. I can add with another Italian metaphor. I don't know how many of you know this, but the Dante's Inferno is pretty much a funnel. So it's.
I thought you were gonna say a slice of pizza. But okay.
Yeah, that could be also a slice of pizza pointing down with the thin part. So if I understand correctly, Marco, there is different levels, and the more you go down, the narrower your funnel becomes.
Exactly.
But also the more you go down, the closer you get to people actually paying you to purchase your services.
Open the wallet, let's be honest. Yes, so exactly.
On the top is people that know you in some way, and at the bottom is people that pay you. In the middle, there is 50 shades.
Exactly, 50 million shades. You could also say like the top is actually people that even don't know you, but could know you, right? Because that would be like your market size, for example. You could say, hey, we sell a specific thing. We know how many people could be interested in our things. So this is our market size. how many people in the world could be interested, or businesses in the world could be interested in our product. So this could be the very, very, very top, right? This is what we can reach. How many of them know us? That could be the second step, right? And so here, there is where you can track a bit of the brand awareness, or it's called. So even the funnel, there is not a specific way to build it. Each company, of course, builds it differently, and the steps are always different.
I love that you already, you talk very corporate, like you already apply the examples and the lessons of a big tech company. I wonder if, many listeners out there are designers. They come from design backgrounds, and they might be wondering right now, do I need a funnel? Do I need to do all those things? And also, am I really in need for knowing if I'm a sales-driven company or a marketing-driven company? Do you think they ever ask these questions? And if yes, what's your answer, Marco?
I don't think they ask themselves this question, because I will never ask myself this question when I was working as an architect. So these are all frameworks that I learned on the way. In my, let's say, experience, in the learning experience, though, I can also say though that like marketing, it's something that's very much lacking in the educational architecture, like sales in general, but also marketing. Like how can I promote my own business once I leave architecture? That's something that is missing a lot. So people I don't think they have this awareness. Though as architects or designers, I think we have already a very good starting point, which is branding. We are creatives. We like beauty in a way. And branding ourselves, it's kind of a natural instinct for architects. I think we tend to be active on social media. So this is already at the end of the day a kind of, let's put it as top of the funnel things, because you want people to know you and see you, and we share our projects. We want people to see what we design, right? A lawyer or students of law probably will never share their, of course, you as a researcher, you can share your things, but more for feedback. We architects, we want people to know us, to see what we designed, we created. So I think brand is very much in what do you say, already part of a designer or an architect.
So if I hear you right, you're suggesting design firms and architects more in general tend to be more marketing driven than sales driven.
Will I state that? I can't state that actually, because I never work in a corporate or a bigger architectural firm, right? I just work with a boutique or more smaller companies, and in that case was a lot of marketing. Definitely, there was a sales process. But there, at the end of the day, in architecture, the firms where I worked was a lot of branding, right? Of course, yes, you can find architects with ugly websites, but then I would say the biggest majority, if it's a young architecture studio, you really invest in having a nice website that clearly explains what you do, etc., etc. So that is there. Then there is a full maybe transition, there is a lot of networking in architecture, right? That's also could be part of the funnel at the end. I remember when I was working in the currently it's called Sauer Studio, there was a lot of networking events where we were going also when you were in the States, to meet the real estate companies or whatever. So that's big part of the business. At the end of the day, how do you find projects? Otherwise, if there are a million ways, but this could be one. So I don't think it's just marketing driven. I think that comes more naturally. The sales part maybe in architecture comes when people bring it as an expertise from outside, or people with experience come and say, okay, this is how you do it. I don't think naturally an architect leaving the university will start doing networking to get projects. This is something you learn maybe a bit after, like to go to event to try to find clients or other channels of acquisition. That's another word, channels, we can discuss later. But the branding comes pretty natural, right? The marketing side. What was the first thing you did after you finished your master or bachelor? You built a website. I assume.
Or a portfolio.
Exactly, right, in the portfolio. So that's already a lot of marketing that you're doing for yourself. Because that's how also we pitch ourselves to employer to find jobs. We send portfolios, which is a very unique things in the industry if you compare with other industries, right? You send a portfolio of my work. The CV is important, but show me what your actual skills in designing. So there is a lot of marketing there.
I think if I hear you and if I connect with what I experience as a student, I feel you are taught in architecture school generally how to express yourself and how to appeal to your peers, because at the end all your professors are architects or they come from that background. but you rarely are taught how to appeal to your clients, which is a completely different story. So I think indeed what you're saying makes sense. Like we do marketing, we market ourselves. We just maybe don't have in mind what's the ultimate target group we should market for when we want to get projects. Because that really brings me to the second question. Like I feel stuff that I learned from you throughout the years is to really have in mind who you're doing this for and be systemic on what you're doing, which is something that as architects we don't do. I was wondering, like, what do you think is the biggest mistake most architecture firms and architecture students do today?
Maybe it's not knowing who you want to, even who you want to work for, right? I guess that's another thing. Like, of course, maybe architects have the tendency to say, well, I can do everything for everyone. But I think that's already one thing. Who you want to work for at the end of the day, right? Do you want to have a firm? Is it your own firm? Is you're part of a corporate? I don't know. But in general, do you want to work for privates? Do you want to work for companies? Do you want to work for public entities? What's your focus? And targeting your customer is the first thing. Who are you speaking to, or who are you planning to go and speak to? Once you know that, then you can start building all your brand around it, your messaging, your pitch, your everything you want. Because at the end, yes, maybe everybody's good in building websites nowadays and making it shine. But at the end, most of them talk to everyone. They try to talk with everyone, which is one of the lessons in marketing and sales or whatever in companies. Like a lot of companies, my customers, I can sell to everyone. My product fits to everyone. That's never true. And the same as I think in architecture. As an architect, you probably have specific skills, or your team of architects, or your company, your mini company, you have skills that fit one specific need. Start with focus, right? Focus on a smaller niche and try to get as much from that niche, and then you can try to expand, etc., etc. This can definitely. But if you start trying to do a bit of everything, like, oh yeah, I have a friend of my father that might give me a project for a house restoration, which sounds fun. But then I want to do that competition for that public building because it's very cool and fun. And then, at the end of the day, you are trying to get different things, developing things for different final customers. And I think at the end of the day, you will never deliver the 120% you can deliver, because you will always try to find a solution that is a kind of lukewarm in the middle. So
focus.
That's definitely focus. Focus, become an expert in your niche, exactly, and go out and meet people, right? Talk to people. Not only like, of course, social, it doesn't have to be physical, go out, but that's also very important. Like at the end, I think this is something a new experience. We always networking. It's still one of the best channels when it comes to these kind of industries, for example, architecture. When it comes to B2B, when it comes to, but also B2C, when it comes to meeting you need to meet the people, because it's a kind of bigger project. Again, you're not selling something small. You're not selling business card design or something very small that people can just find you online and buy. You need to be convincing. People need to trust you. There is a lot of trust between architects, maybe, and designers and customers. So I think this is very important to build. It's a relationship so if you invest in this, I think it's also very powerful, because at the end you plant little seeds, and even if today it looks like you didn't get much out of it, it will come back, right? If you network today, tomorrow things will come back. People will remember you, people will write you maybe, or they will, someone that you met that day might refer you to someone else, and that one comes to you. So at the end of the day, I think that's also very important.
So if I hear you right, here we're talking about networking, and not only networking, but networking with the right people, which is target customers, not peers. So don't network with the people you hang out every day. Network with those that might commission you projects, which most likely think differently than you. But at the same time, they might be the ones that you need to learn how to understand, because then you can really serve them better, or at least fit better your services in a certain market demand.
I would
Is
say
that right?
So, yes, exactly. That sounds good.
I keep repeating after you, Marco, only to make sure that we stay up to speed, because one of the big issues I feel is that I have this very often, like either if you talk to students, if you talk to fellow architects, when you get too business, you lose a bit the conversation. And I think that's the whole point of this podcast after all. Huh? We try to look at architecture beyond architecture, so from other perspectives than the usual ones. I want to link this topic to a question from our team, because I went back to the non-architecture team and I asked them, okay, guys, what questions can I shoot at Marco? And there is one that fits very well here. And Francisco, our marketing coordinator, was asking, how did you transition from, an architecture background, architecture degree, architecture job, into a few years later being a marketing role, like pretty high in responsibility, like even though university didn't teach you anything about that and you never had formal training about that. How do you make it happen, Marco? What's the trick?
It's a school of life. No, jokes aside, in my case was very was actually incremental development, slowly getting there. It was not like a radical change. Because actually from architecture, I went from architects or working as an architect, let's say as a designer, into product design. From product design, I went into product management, and from product management into product marketing management. I can say a bit more about it, but so it was a transitional thing. But generally, after a few years I worked as an architect, I actually realized that was not the world for me. So first of all, I realized I was unhappy. I didn't like the industry, maybe how it developed, there is a lot of vanity around it. We can open, Pandora boxes here, but also a bit how in general is structured with the working situations for young architects, but also like people with a certain level of seniority, the life balance, work and again personal life. Again, I don't want to make it like it's the full industry, but we know that there is a problem. So I felt like it was a place for me where maybe wouldn't have gave me what I wanted, and it would have drained me a lot. Some people are made for that. I was not. And this doesn't mean I don't like to work a lot, but not for this specific, not for vanity, let's say. So at the end of the day, I moved more into product design, which is kind of different. And also what I liked more is that the process was much faster. You get feedback faster from the market. Like for a building, you have a long process. And then if you, for an urban plan or things that are bigger scale, once you start the process, if you win a project, if you have to go into it, then you have all the phase of less creativity. You need to realization, go to details, constructions, etc. So it becomes a massive project. It takes a lot of part of your life. Mm-hmm. I like more quick things. So product design was fun. I did both physical product design, the digital product design. And that is where I discovered a bit more the world of 3D printing, which at the end of the day was like fast prototyping is also defined. It's the fast way to prototype things is 3D printing. So I had all the cards I wanted to actually play the role I wanted to do. I can design. The day after I have my product done. It's beautiful. I get super quick feedback. So it was super interesting. Then I became an expert in 3D printing in a way, and that is what also pushed me into product management, which is what I was saying before. It's more the part of developing things. But during my career, during my year and a half, I think, of experience, I realized that I was missing the creative side of things, even though I liked also to build things. Physically and digitally, and that's where product marketing came in. Again, so it's not really fully marketing things, it's a hybrid. But at the end of the day, I keep the building things, I keep the part of the product as well, but there is a lot of creativity. Product marketing, again, if you think about the funnel, what we were telling before, product marketing takes kind of the very bottom and the very top. Where the very bottom is where sales comes in our specific case. So we help sales with all material to pitch our product. So that's, of course, there is a lot of creativity. But most of the creativity comes at the very top, almost, which is like product marketing usually owns the go-to-market strategies for a new product, a new feature, which depends on the company. But if you think B2C company, it can be really creative. If you think Apple, the way they redesign the GTM, go-to-market strategies, things, the Apple event, right? Those are launches of new products. So there is a lot of creativity there. So I think answering your question, I took it a bit from far away. I think there is a different ways. You can just decide to do it. And there is a lot of tools out there that you can actually, learning tools that you can actually take courses or whatever to get a bit into marketing more. Or if you have the chance to enter in a company that is not specifically made only it's not only architecture, you could try to start shuffling around, right? And try new department. Because that was my case. I went in a tech company that manufactured 3D printers. I entered as a designer, and then I moved within the company into marketing, where I found myself, because that's also very important. I believe that at the end of the day, yes, in our case, in Italy at 18 years old, you decide what university you want to do, 19, what age is...
Yeah.
Of course, a lot of people have clears what they want. I back then didn't. I know I want to do something creative, and then I jumped into it, and then you commit into a project of 5 years, 6 years. So some people fit, some people realize they don't fit. To the one that realize that don't fit, I can say do not feel bad. It's 2023. There are a lot of ways to move around, and there are a lot of people that change positions. And luckily, architecture is one of those things that when you become a hybrid when you study architecture, I think, meaning you're not very skilled in one thing specifically that you can only apply in your industry. Again, I don't know, maybe law again. You are a hybrid, you are built to be an empathetic person because you always work with brief, which maybe came from professors or came from customers. So you needed to understand the brief and build something to satisfy. And that's a lot of, already skills that are requested in a lot of industries at the end of the day. You build design, you iterate a design, you do multiple designs until the professor is happy. And this is already a lot of design thinking process, which in a lot of companies requested. You learn a lot how to use softwares that you know how to use, and sometimes they don't teach you at the university because they don't know professor themselves. So you go on YouTube and you learn it and you become super skilled. So you have a lot of flexibility. And nowadays, this, how people say, these T-shaped people are really, companies are looking into this T profile, which is yes, you have a core, something that you really learn and you get good at, but then you're open to, you're flexible. You can open more about other things quickly. And I think architects are really, generally designers are really made for this. It's easy to absorb new things and just know how to use them fast. And there is where it came to wrap it up, it came very handy in some companies where I work with, maybe we're more engineer driven. So bringing a creative mind could help a lot because again, you bring a lot of design thinking process where it's okay, this solution maybe works, but can we make it better? Can we give it another iteration? Like in architecture, maybe the first design you did was already beautiful, but you say, you know what? In the night you start thinking, and the day after you go back on the sketchbook and you start designing another one. Then it works a bit better, and then more and more and more, and then you have your final design. And those kind of processes are very useful in industries in general, but in startups even more, where people want to, a kind of approach where you keep iterating until you find their actual product that fits the market.
So if I hear you right...
Good luck making this short.
No, but I feel like what you're saying basically is that in the same way you design a project, which is prototyping a design step by step, and improving it and changing it and adjusting it to different conditions and bringing in a lot of perspectives, you could do the same with your career, or at least that's, Marco, a bit what you did, if I connect with what I know about you and what you're telling us today.
You reinvent yourself.
So it really is from, taking small steps. And you mentioned you moved from architecture, where you were very unhappy and you didn't feel a bright future or a healthy workplace so far, into 3D printing, within this 3D printing company into marketing, and then another jump into full-on marketing in a bigger company. So was there in this chain a moment where you said, okay, I'm done with architecture, that's it?
There was a moment, yes. I think I realized that when I was designing things for this 3D printing company, for Big Rep, there was a moment where I realized, when you realize, damn it, it's also I'm done with architecture. At this point, I will never go back. Also because, yes, you keep being flexible, able to learn, but I was seeing how the market was moving, the industry was moving, back then also, not back then, well, look, we're getting older, but Revit and other BIM software were catching up more and more, so people were learning that. And of course, when I work in a product design environment, I don't need Revit, so I was getting to a point where I was seeing all my friends maybe building an architecture career. Some of them a bit luckier, some less. And then you see them and you're like, oh, wow. The main fear was, what happens if I lose now, let's say, this job? If I can't, how do I go back? But then I also asked myself, do I want to go back? So I think we give the best of ourselves when we're out of the comfort zone, where we're very uncomfortable. So even though I realized that, I was like, we will find a way, something, yeah.
Was this, Marco, so it wasn't really a moment where you said, I'm fed up with architecture, that's it? I'm going to start something else. It was more like looking back, thinking, oh, I've been in another thing for too long. Now I can't go back.
I wish was the first, which would have been very romantic, but not even the second. I think in my case was very... When I moved to Berlin, from New York back to Berlin, I literally applied, I think, for every architecture studio that was around. Nobody even answered me, which probably meant that I was not a good architect or a good designer. But that was very frustrating. Also, another thing on the industry, which is like... And then I started looking around for other things, like product design, etc., until I found specifically Big Rep. And the full things, which was much healthier, the hiring process, like I did some interviews with companies, architecture company in Berlin. But when it came also to the moment of pitch me a salary or proposing me some positions or things like conditions, it was not really feasible for me. So when I had the experience of actually joining a startup or more, again, a tech company, let's be honest, was much more fresh, was refreshing. So the full process of hiring, for example, for me was like, wow, this is pretty nice. And we got to the point where when they asked me like, how much do you want at the end of the year? I say them some, and then they came back to me a few weeks later saying, okay, we decided to hire you. By the way, we offer more than what you ask. It was also substantive, like was more, which was like, wow, okay. Because they have benchmark, that's how they work, and you need to get your benchmark. But I'm as an architect, I'm not used to. I'm used to, well, at least my generation, I don't know how it is nowadays. I remember when also I was in London looking for an internship, had to pitch, like to call to studios, say, can I do an internship for free? I need something on my portfolio. Everybody asks me for experience. I don't have experience and nobody is willing to pay an internship. And then, of course, people can come to me and tell me, yeah, but you were the one that accepted to work for free. Did I have another way? No. And in the end, that internship helped me to get a job. But this, in the world where I'm now, I will never imagine this could happen, something like this.
So let's be very clear. Out of this story, the main takeaway is that architecture is today not a very healthy industry.
Yesterday, at least when I was, and I don't know nowadays how it is, this maybe someone from our audience can tell us, but...
In recent times, it for sure became challenging, but isn't there a chain of value? Like probably the fact that architects struggle getting clients that pay well and give them projects in a healthy way and carry out that prevents them from turning into employers that can hire and go through processes and then pay in a fair way, right?
Could be, yes.
So in theory, the dream is, how can we make architecture a healthier business so that people like Marco can stay within architecture and not move away into marketing and become evil sellers?
Is there an answer? I don't think so. I think there are a million answers. There are so many factors. Like you could say also, one of the things that I believe is completely right, like compare with what I do now. What I do now, of course, there is a creative factor, but I can kind of plan it, right? Okay, if I say I need to prepare a strategy and I might for a release of a project or a product, I might go into a brainstorm with several fellows and say, okay, let's try to come up with some out-of-the-box go-to-market, right? Let's be more creative. Still, within one day, we will create a lot of ideas. We will come up with a lot of solutions. So I can box the timing for my creative part of my job. And then when it comes to actually production, that's I can even more time box it. Now, when it comes to architecture, when it comes to participating to, I don't know, when you join like those that you have you say customers, but I don't know the word now, I don't remember. And a customer that someone wants to build something and calls 5 studios, 10 studios.
Competition.
Is it a competition though? No, it's tender. That was the word. And then you are the one supposed to do the concept, or you and your group of friends. If you are in a work environment that pays you with a fixed salary, not per hour, how do you time box the time you actually can create something that is stunning? Because at the end you want to come up and win this tender. Can you do that? Maybe some people are able to, but at the end the creative process can be also that you spend 10 hours in the office and then nothing came out. I believe there is a lot of way to solve it and make it also better. Of course, if you have the pressure of your employers, the do better, do more, creativity probably gets stuck a bit. But how can you control the creativity side? That's on the creative. Then we can discuss more about the construction, and that's another world. But can you actually? How do you, the relationship of what I pay you is what you give me. What you give me is creative results, projects. How do you manage to make it happen within a certain amount of time, for example?
how do you control creativity to make sure it doesn't make you too expensive or make you waste too much time?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's an interesting. By following this train of thought, then probably most of the problems of architecture relate to the fact that it's a creative profession where the marketing is done by architects, the sales is done by architects, the HR is done by architects, and everything at the end relates so much to the profession that the profession itself struggles. But do you feel corporate architects? There is plenty of firms that run as full-on corporations, with HR dedicated team, with the business development and sales team, people that come from different backgrounds or that transition fully like you into different backgrounds. They turn out to be more successful financially and competitive in terms of the salaries they can offer and the projects they can get. I've wondered if that would be possible to implement also on a small scale. So we talk about small firms that have 6 people, 7 people. How could they implement this stuff without having to, become a multinational global corporate architecture office?
Let's think why corporates can get more projects. Corporates or bigger studios, why they're able to pay more and why they're able to get more projects.
You're asking me.
Mm-hmm. We know it. Brainstorming.
We're flipping the interview.
Exactly,
I love
exactly.
it.
No, this is more a brainstorm session. Why do you think bigger corporates or bigger studios are able to get projects whenever they want to, let's say?
I can imagine 3 factors. And I say 3 just as a random number. But
and then you're going to think how to fill the number.
Exactly. And then I have to fill the spots. Okay. One could be the fact that they have access to a bigger network of potential clients and also more professionalized sales funnel, to quote what we were referring before. So they have people that sell and only sell, and that makes them a lot better at selling. Second could be that they have expertise, they have access to more resources and portfolios that are a lot wider. So I did 10 more buildings like this, and I have people specialized in A, B, and C in my team because my team is very big. So I can take on projects that are a lot more complex. And I have to think of the last one. Oh, yes. The last one could be that they are financially a lot more stable. They charge a bit more, plus a big corporation can take lots more projects. It means that when the downtime comes, there is bigger chances that people that are without a project can land on another project. So you retain better employees and you have better cash flow throughout your practice.
I think they're all valid points, definitely. And this could be, which for a smaller studio could be hard. But then we can add a 4th one, which is actually the brand.
Marketing.
At the end of the day, wouldn't be that important. If you go to someone like a studio like Zaha Architects or you name it, you go there for the brand. If you ask a project, someone like this, you go there because it's the luxury, it's the quality, it's the uniqueness, it's you go for a design language that you know what to expect. That has been. So I think that's also another thing that is important for a smaller studio. Might be hard to already put yourself out there, and customers or businesses to find the 3 things that you said, plus knowing what can come out of that, right? Because maybe you don't have a design language that you already establish or think on the mobile industry. If you want to buy a phone, you have 3-4 companies in mind, right? But if there are probably a lot of smaller companies that focus on niches, but you will never think, or you will, before you go there, you need to discover them, you need to know them, you need to like the design. And then, like you said, do I trust that phone that is going to last that much? Is my data secure? Is my, all those things that maybe a bigger corporate will give you the insurance that it will be there. So I agree with your 3 points, definitely. So how can a smaller studio build something like this?
Yeah, so we have 4 points now, right?
Yes.
One is sales, funnel, and team. One was portfolio and expertise. One was cash flow, and one was brand. Maybe they could all work on a small scale as well. You might not become competitor in museums if you have a 3-people practice, but you could specialize in villas built in wood. And then your brand is all about that, and you do branding better than anyone because it's a niche product. You do it locally maybe, and that's, maybe that's a trick if I hear you, Marco. How can you focus your marketing and your whole strategy on a smaller niche that fits the scale of your firm? Would that make sense?
I think that will work, which can be everything. Can be, again, either you become an expert in the full process of something specific, like you said, wood houses, something, and I'm good at designing them until the production. Or maybe it's very vertical in a way, or can be horizontal, where you say my studio is very good in concept design. We just do the first phase, and with a certain design style, right? So it's more horizontal. It's not a specific typology of construction or blah blah. It's more like a phase. Like we're very good in one phase specifically, and this you can find a lot out there. So then the idea is also, how do you differentiate yourself? How do you build? There are a lot of tools out there, right, that can be used on go-to-market strategies. How do you go out there and try to resonate? How do you pop up, compare with a lot of people that might do the same as you did? Think about architecture. Now we talk about strategies. When me and you started the competitions, at the very beginning, there were a lot of competitors that they were doing competitions, and that was me and you alone, two people that started this thing, and it's like, oh, we're gonna launch a competition. How people are gonna find us? How do we make sure that customers or users or students will find us and actually register to our competitions? And if we just launch the competition, probably no one with an account Instagram with 30 followers back then probably, and we wouldn't have got any subscribers. So in that case, me and you sat down and we thought, in a way, we were not even marketer, we were not doing anything, we were only architects, let's say. But we sat down and we had strategies about how to think out of the box for a go-to-market strategy. And in that case, you remember what we did? We contacted, I don't know if they're called now, they're called more referral or whatever, but ambassadors. And that's how we were able to actually build something like this. We reached out to all the Instagram people that had a good amount of followers that were in the architecture world. And then we contacted them and we kind of made a deal with them, which nowadays it sounds like, well, that's everybody does it. In
16,
I think the only company in architecture in the realm of competitions, nobody was doing it. And we copied it from Daniel Wellington, I think, that was doing it with the watches a lot. Back then, there was Daniel Wellington watches everywhere. So we took the same concept, we brought it into competitions architecture, and it worked out. And we were able to build a brand from the very beginning. So I think that's another thing. Build it, but then the what is important. You know what you want, but then how you do it. How do you go out there? How do you make sure that people find you? And again, yes, networking, we discuss about those things, but then there is also a lot of tools nowadays that can allow you to do it from home. How can you pop up? I don't want to use that word, but how do you get the virality in a way? Not the virality that gives you 10 minutes of fame, but rather actually that, brings people in. Yeah. There was this architect and designer back then that I don't know if he's still, probably you know what I'm talking about. On Instagram was popping up a lot because of his designs the conceptual design he was making were...
Was it Panda?
Very attractive. Panda, exactly. I think then he changed the name in something else, so maybe someone can let us know. But that was a very interesting case for me because he built a lot of his brand on social media, and then of course he had a product. He was focusing on concept design that they were beautiful and out of the box. He had his own design language, and it was very working on social media, on Instagram, for example, back then. So how can you reproduce this with different channels, with different social, with different or other ways, in a way that you go out there and with the minimum investment, you start already basically getting customers. Is there a way? I'm sure there is. There is always a way.
Yeah, I love this reference. So looking back at the days in 2016, and this whole idea, like maybe not everyone listening to the podcast knows, but we started with a core focus on doing research through design competitions that were open for everyone. And I always, explain stuff. You never know. And that started like that. That within architecture,
I give for granted things.
Yeah, within architecture, we started doing a lot of things, including this podcast. But yeah, I remember, Marco, you were there, a genius. This ambassadors program, stole from Daniel Wellington, was a huge hit. So it brought us from one day to the other to thousands of followers. The only problem is that there we had to be the first.
We were the first, yes.
Like the moment we did it, others followed, and then that competitive advantage, which is also a very important keyword in the business lingo, was kind of lost.
True.
So I feel it's also interesting, if a design firm develops a marketing funnel or a sales funnel that, not only costs very little, but also can sustain some competitiveness against all the other offices that might do similar products. Do you have some ideas on how to do that? Shall we shoot some random thoughts on it?
So you're asking me if we can come up with other ideas, again, let's call acquisition, campaigns.
Yeah. What could be a cool? We mentioned Panda. What could be another campaign you could do?
So again, when for campaign, the definition of campaign, it's actually something like this, right? When you do a launch, when you do a release of something, or you decide that you need to increase sales or whatever, a campaign in a specific project that you go out there and then you can track all the results out of this. Okay, if I put some effort to do this, what do I get back? So in our example of the ambassadors, our effort was very minimum, right? Because at the end we were reaching out to people, giving some content to them, come up with a business proposal, because at the end of the day we were both, the mission was to make both happy with this project, and then it was just a release. But what we got back was much bigger. We built that first community and actually a brand. Now, how do you come up with what can be another way?
So we mentioned, Panda and all this. There were a lot of Instagram profiles, right, that started basically doing very beautiful designs to build a brand for themselves. And then later on, they got clients. Like there was this one project of a house in a cliff. You remember?
Ah, yes, that was super
someone
viral,
designed
yes.
This house in a cliff.
It was everywhere, yes.
It was everywhere, but it was, like one guy that decided on his own that was cool to do. And then later on, someone actually commissioned that.
Oh, wow, that's
a viral strategy, I think.
I love it. Beautiful. Those are the stories I want to hear more.
Oh, there was one guy, you remember, you were a big fan. The guy that applied to work at Big with a rap video.
Ah, yes. Was it a rap video? Ah, yes, was a rap video. Yes, I remember that video. That was wonderful. I hope this guy is very successful right now. That was a wonderful video. Yeah, it was a rap video where he was showing all his render skills, and it was an animation thing. It was beautiful. That's exactly the think out of the box thing, right? Don't just try. It's not just a checklist of how do we release. So let's build a website, right? That could be one thing. Website, for example. Do you remember Big? How it was a Big, the big website. Now they changed it, I think, recently. But the first design, when it came up, was very also unique. That you have all the icons. I think it was the first one using all icons for projects with different colors that you could just shuffle by category and things. That's a very specific thing. They already had the name out there, blah 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 blah. But still, the content, the way it was created, I think was very powerful, was very unique, right? So maybe like if you see, I don't know, architecture website studios, I think a lot of them look the same, right? You have a portfolio, you have your project.
They do,
You have your, how do you call it? Your, whatever, scrolling projects, images, or whatever you have. But maybe, like, of course, then the product itself needs to pop up to be the things that attract the user to stay. But if you try to make it not only the product, not only the projects you do, but the full way you sell it, or the sugar coating around that, I think can help. So how can you make something out of the box with that as well, right? Because at the end of the day, yes, you can have the best marketing strategy in the world, you can think out of the box, but if the product doesn't have a market fit, if you do projects that nobody wants to realize, at the end of the day, you will not have probably customers anyway. So the effort is so also there you need to come up with something unique. Our competitions were open in a way, right? We didn't have a specific brief. We didn't have too many requirements. It was like, hey, think about the restaurants of the future, think the future, was very open. So at the end, maybe we also had that market fit plus the marketing strategy. So there was a lot of both. I would love to have some brainstorming with new generation of thinking, okay, how can you break it? I mean, how can you break the code?
I think there is a whole level of novelty. Like you cannot repeat what others already done.
No, don't try to copy. No, never. I agree.
But you could you could steal from other industries. I feel that's something architects never do. Like there is so many good ideas out there. Like people try to sell shit. Oh, I said that was forward. People try to sell stuff all the time. Like you could learn a lot from many of those things. Like there's people doing lotteries. Like I want to give away one free t-shirt if you repost my thing 10 times. And then all of a sudden that's, like free marketing because you sell one t-shirt for free, you sell 10 more for a full price. Tricks like this can be applicable to architecture as well if you are creative enough.
That's actually a very good point. At the end of the day, again, marketing campaigns, that's a lot of creativity. There is a lot of creative campaigns out there, launch campaign, go-to-market campaigns. And if you actually start checking, for example, the Danny Wellington things or what you mentioned, there are a lot of things out there. And subscribe to this newsletter. So suggest to everybody who is interested in marketing, besides registering for the architecture newsletter, which is beautiful, register also for it's called Marketing Millennials, and it's all about a lot of
Marketing Millennials.
Yes, and their daily newsletter, and there is a lot of like things about marketing, a lot of marketing campaigns. It's very friendly, and it's always a meme of the day, which is very important. So no meme, no party. And I'm learning a lot from other companies, like you said, campaigns. There are, I don't remember the name, so I cannot even do product placement also, even though Luca is looking for sponsors for the podcast. There is this cookie company, I think in US, that, they make homemade cookies, very high quality, very specific, very, they're very good, they're very healthy, they're very unique, they're very like well designed and whatever. They create this brand, they kind of, even them probably copied a bit maybe the Apple style of creating something that is very luxury, very unique, and they build a brand around them, and they created a bit of hype around them. And now all of a sudden, as far as I remember, I might be wrong how it was the beginning, but all of a sudden, let's say they started doing limited drop. So they basically release weekly box of 8 or 16 of those very beautiful and good cookies. But every week they deliver 1,000. They release 1,000 boxes, right? So you can buy them only if you're fast. And in that area, they're super famous, right? In US, people are trying to get them because, it's also the exclusivity of having them, which is very similar to the campaigns maybe from shoes or sneakers that we are now more familiar with, right? There is a limited number drop release. So the first comes, first serve. In the sneaker industry, it worked a lot. You mix that one plus the luxury things of Apple, you make cookies, you apply the two ideas together, and you create something that people resonate with, and actually now everybody wants to get those cookies. So you can do these limited drop things. Can you get these ideas and move the architecture? I'm sure there are ways, right?
So you can become very exclusive, create scarcity. I only work for a certain type of clients, only one project a year.
Exactly. You create FOMO, right? The fear of missing out that we hear a lot. Also in the time of crypto was very, very, the FOMO things was very much there. Another fun campaign, this is a cereal company from UK. I don't remember the name again. I mean, cereals have been, like the products in the supermarket, there is so much to do there because at the end we are used with always the same products. Are very, like if you go in the milk section, right? They're all the same. One company that is kind of disrupting it is Oatly. A lot of people probably know Oatly, that are doing a lot of designs and a lot of marketing. So when you go now, you see them, they pop up compared with others. Cereals in UK, there is a company that's trying to do the same. Cereals are like, they're those brands, everybody knows, they're all the same, and someone is trying to. And then when they did the launch campaign of one of their products, I don't remember where, they filled up UK with those billboards. And they will start writing things like with the image of the beautifully designed packaging of the cereals and everything. But then the message was the favorite cereals of Ronaldo, with a little star. And then very small down there written, Ronaldo is a taxi driver from this location in UK. And then they had another one with Mariah Carey loves our cereals. And then it was like Mariah Carey is blah, blah, very small. So of course it was attracting a lot of attention, a huge amount. People were taking pictures and reposting it. So there was also this sense of virality again, of people love the ideas. You see it, you like it, you resonate with the message, you find it fun, you find it how people are breaking a bit the standard. So you want to share it because you want the people around you to know that you saw that and you found it funny. And so it created a lot of, and then that created a lot of brand awareness. Obviously they got sued and they had to delete them. So what did they do? They released the same billboards, but they just put, how you do when you censor a black things on top of the names. So people knew, and now people even more like that because they were like, oh, they censored them. How come? It was such a cool idea. So instead of just deleting it, they made it like, they censored it. And it was even more than it created a second wave of virality because people were like following the story. So they created a hype behind that. This is a very specific story, but there are a lot of these things that could be brought. Like cereals have always been marketing in the same way for years. Someone comes in and says, let's break it. And all of a sudden this brand becomes famous. I'm sure the cereals are also very good. The product is there, otherwise people wouldn't buy that. But
that makes me think, Marco, that very often in architecture, a campaign, it's a building. Like nothing sells better your services than a building you already built. But very often you could also do projects that have a special character, that somehow That's what sometimes they call them Trojan horses, which basically is you use your a viral story to kind of hide inside a promotional message. I remember maybe we were talking about it together, the Subway diet. That Subway paid a guy to be on a diet for I think 1 month, only eating Subway sandwiches, and he lost a lot of kilos, and that went viral, and the Subway brand was so much in it that they couldn't take it out, but there was free advertisement. If you do it in architecture, you could do viral projects with low budget and get your name out there. Maybe that's
very
a way.
True. I like it. Interesting. There was another similar, well, it's not in this case, was not like that, but now that you said architecture, when you say the building is the marketing campaign, I'm thinking, I saw it somewhere, which I think was very interesting, but there was a name of a company, which I think was the construction company, but I don't recall it, so maybe it didn't work out. When ChatGPT started popping out and there was this huge virality of ChatGPT, I remember I saw somewhere an image, in a lot of places, an images of a building in construction, and you know when you have a building construction, you have like wraps around to cover it in some situations, commercial, and there was a commercial for the construction company, and there was written like, hey ChatGPT, finish this building, like the prompt. And then there was a subheader, a subline saying there are things that AI will never be able to do, right? So like say, ChatGPT can't finish the construction of the building. We still need some knowledge that we need to have. So I found it also very cool, you know, like it was more like you get a hype of something else and you try to bring it on your own environment.
That's also a topic we touched on the first episode.
Cool.
That the architecture industry might be automated for like 37%. And the construction industry is super low. It was like 3 or 5 or 2%. So it's quite funny, yeah?
Definitely scary numbers.
To wrap it up, maybe it would be nice. Like we talked about a lot of stuff. Maybe it would be interesting to summarize it with a piece of advice. Like first one could be for someone that it's moving their first steps in their career, like coming out of architecture school, or they're still studying, or they've been working for a couple of years. What would be your advice from a marketing perspective, either career-wise or more like marketing strategy for themselves?
There are several advices which I would give. That's a problem. But career-wise, professionally, the best thing you can do is that you finish your university, you're full of energy. You probably need to end up doing some internship and work. Go for it with free time. Mm-hmm. Learn new things. Again, explore marketing, explore business development. There is so many tools out there. Like you can even use ChatGPT to get some knowledge in an easiest, the more digestible way. But get knowledge from other things that they will become much handier. They will be very handy in the future for sure. So that's one thing.
So expand your education. Don't stick to what you learned so far.
Exactly. Anyway, you have the mindset, so it's gonna be easy for you.
Cool. And for someone running their practice, like there is a lot of people listening to this podcast and already being deep into running their own practice or working in architecture for 20 years and more. What can we tell them? What piece of advice could we give them to market better their practice?
I like where we were going together before. Think out of the box. Try to test new things, right? Testing, if you can test things for cheap, well, like in a cheap way, with a minimum investment, go for it. Everybody in your team or you as an owner probably use, again, social media and a lot of things. You are bombarded with ads all the time in different ways. When you find something attractive for you, think, can I reuse this in my company for my product? Right? All the things we discussed before, like referral things, or can I place my company in a YouTube ads, in an advertising on YouTube in a very specific content that is about architecture with a, test things. These are also like investments that you can do relatively fast. From home, from your office, you don't need to go out. You need to build a bit of content to create it, and you can track also and see, okay, does it bring results? So try to acquire new customers if that's your main scope in a bit of different ways. Think out of the box. Let's put it like this.
Interesting. So first, look outside architecture and learn as much as you can outside architecture, and then think out of the box and apply what you learn out there into your practice, right?
Exactly. I like it. On the first point, I also want to add, stop hanging out with architects. At least that was us. Us. I don't know if it's very much in the... When we were studying architecture, we were only hanging out with architects, like constantly talking about architecture. Break it. Go out. Meetups, whatever. Right? And then you get insights from different industries.
Get out of the bubble.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Marco, with this one, I want to wrap it up and thank you very much. This was super interesting.
It was a pleasure.
Makes me want to do a whole podcast together, but let's talk about that another time.
Yes. If you guys want to know more about how we develop new architecture, let us know in the comments now.
Yeah, exactly. Reach out.
That could be
And we are always happy to interact. We're really in talkative mode, as you can see.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Luca. It was super fun.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the Italian accent and a bit more informal kind of environment we set for this episode. As usual, for those that never listened to Beyond Architecture before, we take a moment at the end of the conversation to brainstorm and share with you one boundary-breaking business model idea for you to implement in your practice. This is the one from this week. The marketing architect. Thinking about our conversation with Marco, it kind of came into my mind that as architects, we already have a big set of skills. I think Marco points this out quite nicely. And if we could bring on board maybe complementary figures into our team, I'm thinking about specialists that come from a more business-oriented background, graphic designers. We could really put together an interesting team and work on all those projects that are maybe sometimes interior design, maybe they are part of campaigns, even theme parks could be, that relate to brands. So in other words, you could become a designer of branded spaces. Spaces that are built for a commercial purpose, and that purpose is conveying a marketing message. I think about big launch of sex education, which in many countries pulled out a few stunts that had a spatial connotation. Like this many others. I mean, there is a high potential to do this. It's very often temporary projects. They are quite fun. And you could become a very trustworthy partner for corporates if you have on board all the specialists you need to pull out something like this. This is my idea. I also don't want to limit only to corporate. I really think there is a big potential to extend this to events. But you could also work with climate change, work with grants, and therefore establish temporary art pieces that kind of, like push people and persuade people through the design of space and graphics and aesthetics. This is our idea for this week. I'm curious first to hear what you think about it, and second, if you know any practice that is doing something similar. Let us know, reach out. The channels are the usual, Nonay on LinkedIn and Nonay Podcasts on Instagram. Let us know your thoughts about it, and whatever platform you're using to listen right now, stop for a second, subscribe or follow, give us a rating. From my side and from Marco's as well, I just want to thank you for listening, and I'll see you next week. Beyond Architecture is a Nonay podcast. This episode has been developed with the financial support of the Dutch Creative Industries Fund. Editorial support and marketing for Nonay, Marco Mattia Cristofori, Daniela Silva, and Francisco Rivera. Sound supervision by Daniel van de Poppe for Spraakmaker Media. Advisory, Max Augustijn, Martine Chloe van de Bomen, Francesco De Stefano, and Anne Bruna. I'm Luca De Stefano, your host, and this was Beyond Architecture.